Satoshi Nakamoto is the pseudonym that created Bitcoin, and we have no idea who Satoshi Nakamoto is or was, whether Satoshi Nakamoto is alive or not, whether it's one person or two, whether it's 10 people, whether it's male, female, both, a group, who knows? We don't know if it's a nice person or a bad person. Let me ask you this. I'll posit a simple question, and let's see how many of you know the answer to this. The simplest shape connecting 2 points is a straight line. If you take 2 of these straight lines and you put them in parallel, they will intersect where? Nowhere. Great. Who was Euclid? Who is Euclid? Have you met Euclid? Do you know if Euclid was male, female, or a group of philosophers? Do you know if Euclid was a good man or an ass? Maybe he was a really nasty person. Maybe he beat his wife. Maybe she beat her husband. Maybe they all got together and beat each other because Euclid was a whole school of wrestling maniacs. Let me ask you again. At what point do the 2 parallel lines intersect? How do you know? How do you know? Did you meet Euclid and make sure that since they were such a good person, they told you the truth? How do you know? You know because through a series of proofs, right, that you studied in school, you are able to start with certain premises and from those arrive at conclusions that if they violated this particular axiom, created an absurd outcome. That logical reasoning process is called reductio ad absurdum. It's one of the bases of geometric proofs. You start with, what if these 2 lines intersect? And then you arrive at a conclusion that violates one of the other premises that you have in geometry. By constructing this framework of proofs, you arrive at the inescapable conclusion that, at least in a 3-dimensional space that has the same rules that we understand, these axioms hold true not because Euclid told us they do, but because we have independently verified their truth. It doesn't matter who Satoshi Nakamoto is. Satoshi Nakamoto doesn't control the code. I know because I have read the code, and so have thousands of others. I understand the mathematical principles that underpin the operation of Bitcoin. It took me years to study and understand them, but now I not only understand them, I can build a system that replicates these mathematical proofs, and I will have no more control over that system than Satoshi Nakamoto has over Bitcoin. Because those mathematical truths can be proven correct, and they have certain implications. It does not matter who Satoshi Nakamoto is any more than it matters who Euclid is.
A lot, Andreas. That was a great speech. What's your opinion why Mr. Nakamoto haven't explained why what Bitcoin is for exactly, and why do you think he decided not to reveal his identity?
Well, in Greek mythology, there's the story of Prometheus. And Prometheus had the audacity to steal fire from the gods and give it to man. And as punishment for that, he was tied to a rock where an eagle would eat his liver every day, and then overnight the liver would be regrown so he could be tortured all over again. Satoshi Nakamoto stole money from the state, not stealing the money itself, but stealing the technology of money and giving it to man directly. And if we ever find out who Satoshi Nakamoto is, the most likely result will be that someone will either metaphorically or quite literally tie him to a rock for an eagle to eat his liver out, or her liver, or their liver. The day after Nakamoto is found, we will discover from the media that this person is a criminal, a terrorist, a Muslim, a lesbian, a vegan, an anarchist, a punk rocker, and biologically related to Justin Bieber. I just enumerated, 10 of the most horrifying things I can think of, because that's what the media is going to do, right? Probably at the behest of governments. We got to realize that Satoshi Nakamoto disappeared just in time. I think it's very wise to recognize that Satoshi Nakamoto is not a deity or a prophet, and that even though he, she, or they created a vision for what Bitcoin could be, Bitcoin is not theirs. And their idea of what Bitcoin could be or is not divine truth. We are Bitcoin. And Bitcoin will always be we, not a single person. That's the whole point. And therefore, it doesn't even matter anymore what Satoshi Nakamoto thought Bitcoin is. In fact, Satoshi Nakamoto was mostly, arguably, unsure about whether this would actually work. They were extremely hesitant to think that this would work. So the bottom line is that Satoshi Nakamoto can't tell us what Bitcoin is, because neither he, she, they, nor we yet know what Bitcoin will be. We are making history. We have to take responsibility for the fact that we are part of making history. And part of making history means that you have no idea what comes next, because it's never come before. And so you have to make your choices carefully, and with a long view into the future. So the stewardship of Bitcoin has passed to all of us. What do you think Bitcoin is?
I would say I completely agree that it is the platform. I can speak with the microphone. Thank you. Yeah, I would say I completely agree that Bitcoin is a platform as a Lego which gives you creativity to create whatever you want. So in this point, I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you in a lot of the points, but in this one, for sure. So yeah, it actually gives you the ability to build anything starting from the currency, from the payment system, and ending with the projects which are now built with Ethereum, when you use the blockchain to create the tokens for the trees in the Canada, and then when somebody is making a guitar from the trees, you can follow the history of guitar in the blockchain. So
why not?
Yeah, that is also the great way to decrease the level of illegal
foresting.
Yes, exactly.
So here's the other thing. Here's the other thing that's really important to understand. Bitcoin doesn't have to be one thing. That's the whole point of a platform. It can be that to you, and it can be something completely different to me, and it could be a different thing for every one of you. In a system where you don't require permission to innovate, to be creative, where in order to launch an application on the network, all you need is to create a new application and then find someone else who wants to interact with you using that application, the user base of a legitimate application is 2. Okay? For some applications, 1. You don't need to focus group it or test it. Write a protocol definition, launch it on the network. It's like, how many people do you need to run an application on the network? 2 at most. And that's enough for that application to be meaningful to you. So Bitcoin is, but Bitcoin is also whatever you want it to be. It allows you to express the application of just 2 people. And that's one of its magical capabilities, because if you want to create a financial application on our modern financial system, it has to be something that billions of people will use profitably for the banks, which really means that you can only have very few applications. So I think it's important to think about it as something you own, and I own, and we all own.